Hello?
Hey, Peter, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Let me turn you up here a little bit.
Thank you for is this Jonathan?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, thank you for setting this up. I appreciate it.
No problem. Could you talk a little bit closer to your microphone?
Sure. Testing 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
All
Any
right.
better?
That works. Yep. If you just talk a little closer to the computer, we'll be good.
Okay.
Excuse me, everyone. We'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending. To begin with, our agenda does show an open forum, and I know probably most of you are here for the Bass Lake Road development. I would ask that you hold off until we get to that topic. Is there anyone here for open forum for anything other than the Bass Lake Road item? Not seeing that, I will ask the committee, do you want to deal with the number 5 item agenda first?
That's fine.
Let's dive right in then. If you'll notice, I placed a memo that I wrote late this afternoon with a request dealing with this topic. And I'll read that because most of you probably haven't had an opportunity to read that. And so a Public Works memo, subject Bass Lake Road, Roy Lake connection, Savageau Development Staff recommendation from me, Tom Blommer, Public Works Director, City of Nisswa. As everyone is likely aware by now, a proposal has been made to connect the back end of Bass Lake Road to Roy Lane. This would allow the portion of Bass Lake Road that passes through the swamp to be abandoned. As you're likely also aware, there's a strong opposition to that bypass. I want to make very clear, the developer did not suggest this proposal. I did upon seeing his sketch drawing for his development and subsequent private roads. Since the inception of my employment with the city, Bass Lake Road has generated numerous complaints and has been expensive to maintain. Almost as long, I have been aware of a possibility to connect the back end of Bass Lake Road to Roy Lane to bypass that swamp. I feel it would be a dereliction of my duty not to explore this possibility, if not for this generation, perhaps for the next. With that introduction, I would like to ask this committee, the Public Works Committee, to make a recommendation to the Nisswa Planning Commission and the Nisswa City Council that the developer, Josh Savageau, be required to reserve a 66-foot right-of-way for the possible construction of a swamp bypass. I would also ask that the Public Works Committee recommend that the existing road through the swamp be converted to a walking, bike, nature viewing path should a bypass be built. The reasons for this recommendation is there is a time limit for the Planning Commission to address the application for a plat. That amount of time does not allow for proper engineering or any kind of public comment to take place on any of the options related to the Bass Lake Road situation. That amount of time is also horribly insufficient for a productive discussion of these options to take place with Lakeshore City staff and council. Both cities will need a significant amount of time to come up with a finance plan for this construction or other construction such as improving the existing Bass Lake Road as it is. So parallel to this recommendation, I want to ask that the Public Works Committee recommend to the city engineer, Widseth, to perform an engineering study of the options for Bass Lake Road, Roy Lane, to the Nisswa City Council. And I sign it. Thank you, Thomas John Blommer, City of Nisswa Public Works Director. So I think my first thing is to ask of the committee, are all of you familiar with what we're looking at as far as what the bypass looks like, the area we're talking about? Is that fairly clear? Yeah. Do you have any comments on what I've just read or any of the issues surrounding or questions?
I was wondering, has there been any discussion with Lakeshore on this at all?
Nothing formal at this point, no.
So you don't know if they are for or against anything like it?
I think well, I can't speak for them, no. I think just like here, there's some interest in doing this. There's probably some against it or maybe even a lot against it. I don't know.
So up to this point, they have never helped Nisswa with maintaining that 3/4 of a mile?
The way, I believe I had sent a copy of the original agreement to all of you. And in it, it was very simple. It was written back in 1981, and it said, City of Nisswa shall plow, City of Lakeshore shall grade. And that's all it says. And it was signed by our respective mayors. However, since that time, somehow it's migrated into the City of Nisswa and the City of Lakeshore share in the cost of gravel addition and any kind of maintenance, upkeep, improvement to Bass Lake Road as it has existed since then. And we still plow. One thing that obviously we're probably all aware of is there are 37 residents on the lakeshore end of Bass Lake Road and 3 on the Nisswa side of Bass Lake Road. So obviously, I think that maintenance agreement has to be looked at again too as part of all of this and recalibrated to match today's environment.
So you were saying that it costs roughly 5,000 every other year for Nisswa to,
Yeah, and that's rough. I don't keep an exact tally of it. I just know that every other year we spend about $5,000 adding gravel to it. We grade it off and on many times, in addition to the grading that Lakeshore does. We do tree removal, we address other issues with the road, sinkholes, things that come up, signage. And a lot of that maintenance is exaggerated because of it running through the swamp.
so have they paid Nisswa anything over the years for that?
Usually what happens is we do it one year, they do it the next. And we just go back and forth.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me this situation has got to exist other places, you know, like down in the cities where they put in a subdivision. And it would seem to me that if nothing else, somebody ought to research how these cities handle this. It would seem to me that a maintenance agreement of some sort, you know, a formal one, where Lakeshore actually provides more money for that. It's on. Provides more money for that than they're doing now. You know, I mean, maybe that could be part of a study. I don't know, or maybe our engineers have an idea.
See, I think before we can enter into who pays for what, we have to know what the what is. And this maintenance that we've been doing is things people like myself have done to Band-Aid it, keep it going. I don't know if that's the right level of service for that road. So I think part of our engineering agreement that I'm looking for here is to say, what should that level of maintenance be? And then once we know that, then we can go back and have a joint session with the City of Lakeshore, you know, as to how do we split this cost up?
Yeah.
What's the fair solution here?
So in the meantime, you're recommending putting in that 66-foot right-of-way in this plat of this new subdivision. So if in the future it would happen, it still could be done.
Exactly. It could be 100 years into the future before it's even considered. It could be next year. I don't know. But we can't consider it if he plops a house down in front of there in the next 6 months. We won't get through all of the meetings and the engineering we have to do to determine what the right thing to do is.
How many units are going into the new development?
11,
And are those going to be accessed off of Bass Lake Road?
no Roy Lane.
Roy Lane, okay.
10 and 1 then.
Question from Peter. The planning and zoning from Nisswa voted 2-1 to deny on April 12. The city council met, I believe, on the 20th. What was their decision?
They approved the rezone as far as that, to the best of my knowledge.
And what about the city of Lakeshore?
I can't speak for them.
Is there anybody here that can speak for them? Have they met?
Want to come up to the podium, please?
My name is Wayne Anderson. I lose my voice. I'm on the city council and the liaison to the roads committee. So talked to Tom before, but, and this section of road has always been a challenge for us all, so. But I think we've worked well together over the years, but this could change how that functions, so. But, yeah, the roads committee has talked about it, but then we also made the decision to come and participate here to, I guess we'd like to think we might be able to help. So,
Yeah, and I do think there's there's definitely every reason to believe we'll come to a good agreement for the two of us.
yep,
But we have to look at it scientifically and fairly, and we have to gather some information, and that's what I'm seeking to do here tonight.
sure.
So, thank you.
Any other?
Question,
That's all you, Peter?
question?
Yes.
We're talking about two different cities here and unfortunately, two different counties. Have we studied whether either county can encumber either of the cities as we move forward?
I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't understand the question. Can you repeat that?
Okay, two cities are involved, two different counties are involved. Does either county have some sort of clout over either city that would attempt to interfere in our progress?
I don't believe the counties will be involved in this.
Okay, and if we continue to use, I'll call it the existing road that has some swamp conditions, we're adding traffic and construction vehicles for 11 residents.
That'll be to Roy Lane mostly.
And where do you have the swamp problems in the spring, Tom?
Bass Lake Road.
Okay,
Anybody else have anything they would like to talk about or question?
Have you talked with the developer at all about this?
Some. Obviously, he's interested in what this committee will recommend. It'll go from here back to the planning commission as a recommendation. This committee can't make any rules or anything. We just make recommendations to either the planning commission or the city council. In this case, it'll go back to the planning commission as a recommendation for them to add to their plat approval.
Would this engineering study include fairly accurate cost estimate of if this was ever done?
That's my goal, that they would provide engineering estimates for an option that would build a bypass. They would provide an option for improving the existing Bass Lake Road and not building a bypass. They would give us an option for better maintenance of Bass Lake Road without any improvement.
But there's no way that this planning commission business can be delayed, so they could wait until we get this study done?
As I understand it, as it was explained to me, there's a timeline set by the state that can't be ignored. And so it handcuffs us, and we can't we can't collect the information and run through the meetings to make any kind of a recommendation without something like I'm suggesting, to at least preserve it as an option. Now, should we get through all that information and it's decided to improve the existing Bass Lake Road and abandon that right of way, that's what it is. But you can't do that if it's abandoned now. If you decide then 6 months later, oh gosh, we should have had a right of way there, it's gone forever.
Yeah, so we have, that's what we're asking for, is the right of way to be able to possibly connect in the future.
Correct.
Now, Bass Lake Road, do we have right of way there?
We do not. Bass Lake Road, we maintain that by prescriptive right. This committee, I had forwarded some background information from back in the early 80s of how that came to pass. At that time, someone involved with the maintenance of the city of Nisswa had been plowing Bass Lake Road, probably as a favor to a resident back there, I don't know. He had done that for a few years, and at some point, the city tried to get out of maintaining it for just these reasons we're discussing here tonight. It's an expensive road, it generates a lot of complaints. Residents in that area didn't like that they weren't getting their maintenance for free anymore, and so they threatened to sue the city and the county at that time. And the city signed an agreement to continue to maintain the road, but they specifically said they would not accept it because it wasn't at a city standard. So it remained part of the private property. We just are forced to maintain it as is.
Okay. So we're asking for the right of way to connect possibly in the future. But if we don't connect and then we want to do something for improvements on that road somehow, and I understand that's really expensive because it's like a swamp or a bog.
Yes.
It keeps buckling all the time. But if we wanted to do something like that, wouldn't we have to have the right of way to do so?
I wouldn't suggest doing anything more than what we do today without that right of way being granted to the city.
Is that something that should be included in what we're asking here?
Absolutely, yes. It'll be included in the engineering, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be in what I'm asking in your recommendation tonight. But when it comes back to this committee with the engineering, and if the recommendation is to do something with Bass Lake Road inside of there, it will say we need to clean up the right-of-way issue with Bass Lake Road.
Tom, first of all, I appreciate your coming out with this recommendation prior to the meeting. We learned about it this afternoon because I'm not feeling comfortable with it at this point, just having learned about it last week and appreciating your concerns about the road and concerns of the residents, both Nisswa and Lakeshore. And I guess at this point, the recommendations and going forward all seem to me to be reasonable. So I'm gonna vote for I think it's a good idea that the developer would go ahead and continue the work that needs to be done to reserve the right of way, and the recommendations for the engineering study options for both Bass Lake and Roy Lake, I think are a good idea at this point, given the reasons that you've stated.
Would you care to make a motion to that effect?
Also move.
Can I get a second for discussion?
Second,
With that, is there anyone left in the committee who has any comments they would like to make before I open it up for the audience? Okay, hearing none. If there are any audience members who would like to enter or would like to come up and speak on this, please come up. I ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Very short.
My name is Tom Cameron, 986 Bass Lake Road. As I'm looking at the drawing and the map up there, and I think it was you, Tom, that mentioned if you don't own the right, Nisswa right now, you don't own Bass Lake Road.
Correct.
So you'd have to possibly purchase right away.
We either have to purchase it or get the existing owners to agree to dedicate right away to the city,
Okay.
yes.
Well, as I'm looking at that, I'm sure the developer isn't real keen on a road going through his residential area. So just, we'll give that assumption on my side. Based on that, if you look at how far his property goes along the existing Bass Lake Road, in exchange for not putting a big road through his property, he might be willing to gift that whole thing to you. So it wouldn't cost the city anything. Just an option, just thought.
I agree with you that it would have to be negotiated, and when we got down to that, we would pursue it that way probably.
All right. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Bruce Olson. I live on Roy Lane, 25468 Roy Lane. I sent a letter
you in regards to my concerns about the safety issue of Roy Lane. And I'm not going to read the whole letter because you have that, but basically I have 4 points that I'd like to just kind of remind you of. I don't know if all of you are aware of how Upper Roy Lake Road meets Roy Lane, but it's on a curve. And that creates a blind intersection for anyone taking a left-hand turn up on Roy Lane. During the wintertime, it is extremely icy, and people southbound from Upper Bass Lake Road cut the corner. So people that are going northbound are ending up driving over on the ditch to get by because of the traffic. Now add taking a left turn onto Roy Lane, it's a very dangerous situation. The road slants, you get all kinds of drainage and refreezing. It's a very treacherous corner. Now in the summertime, you have the bright sun shining right in your eyes in the end of the afternoon. And again, that creates a blind spot. So I really want you to consider Roy Lane and the safety of that intersection and the people that have to take it. One more thing. I did a survey on the number of children that are located on Roy Lane. Roy Lane is a very narrow road. And during the summertime, you have a lot of boats, trailers, lawn service people, all kinds of people parking their trucks. So that makes it only possible for one lane of traffic to get through. Now add to that the 50 children riding their bicycles and scooters, walking their dogs. It's a very dangerous road. So I really want you to consider that in your estimation. The stretch of Bass Lake Road has 0 children, none at all. So I want you to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Paul Rashfordson. I live at 25221 Bass Lake Road. I am the Nisswa resident. I think there are really only 2 residents of Nisswa that live on that road, myself and my parents, myself and my wife and my parents. My parents have lived there for 55 years. The road has always been a dirt gravel road, and we hope it always will be. You don't have a single Nisswa resident asking you to make any changes. I don't know of a single Lakeshore resident that's just asking you to make a change to Bass Lake Road. We want the road left the way it is, and I don't know why Nisswa is suggesting to spend substantial sums of money to address a need that just doesn't exist. I know it's been said that the road that it needs improvement because the city gets some complaints from some Lakeshore residents. And the complaints are about the dust on the road. Well, it's a gravel road. And it does get bumpy in the winter, in the spring especially. But there are certainly ways to deal with that, short of spending $500,000 to $1 million replacing a road that we want to keep. I think you're looking for a significant infrastructure improvement solution to a problem that doesn't exist. We would like to keep our road. And I think the residents should be heard, and I think we should have a lot of influence in this decision. Now, I'm glad to hear that the engineering study that sounds like you've already agreed to obtain, will include the option of some improved maintenance. I'm not quite sure how much it costs, but it sounds like it's either about $5,000 a year or $5,000 every 2 years, plus, well, plowing, you're gonna have to plow no matter what. So that shouldn't really be counting as part of this. But to me, maybe it's $7,500 a year could help reduce some of the complaints about the bumps. And that's substantially better than $500,000 to replace the road. It just seems like the engineering study could help give us some clues to how better to maintain this gravel road. Do we have someone grading it that really understands how it should be graded with the degree of slope and where that goes? We're bringing in maybe a couple inches of gravel, every other year. Maybe it's 5 inches of gravel 1 year every 5 years or something. You know, I think there are some significant alternatives, a lot of alternatives, much more cost effective and much more desirable for the residents. So I hope you really consider that. And I hope the engineering study that you ask for asks all the questions, not just how do we relocate this road? How do we abandon this road? Or how do we spend $1 million and improve this road? We all realize that improving the road and turning it into a class, I don't know how you call the class of a road or the type of road that you're looking for, paved with wide shoulders, that's consistent with the rest of Roy Lake Lane, Upper Roy Lake Road or something. We don't want that. It doesn't deserve it. It doesn't need it. No, please consider that. And I hope I did express these items, these ideas in my letter to you. It doesn't sound like, I don't know if you got it or you read it, but if you have any questions, please call me. We'd love to talk about it. Appreciate this opportunity, but we do like our road. I haven't heard of anyone who doesn't like the road. We want to keep it. It's very significant to the area. It's very significant to the property value and the aesthetic value of all the property owners on that road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ginger Olson at 25468 Roy Lane, a taxpayer. And I'm going to actually represent Josh's development. Didn't think I would say that, didn't think it would happen, but I wanted to remind you that you as the council decided, in particular, Mark, you had said you wanted to really limit the number going on the road by the 11 as opposed to the 18, so you changed it to Lakeshore again. So in just evaluating what we're talking about, you're going to give an easement of 66 feet. And as you've looked at the map, if you give an easement of 66 feet, you're wiping out one of those 2 that you gave back of the lake, right? You're also devaluing the one that's next to it significantly because of the number of vehicles coming across from Bass Lake Road. So you gave them 2, now you're going to take away 1 because you can't build on an easement. And you're on a line that has to set back 50 feet from the area that you're talking about giving him the easement on. So as a developer, I'd probably look at that and say, forget it. And Roy Lane people feel that the extra 50 potential vehicles coming out, we were looking at 11, which we agreed with. We thought that was good. You can't really stop development, but you want to control it. If you put the easement in, what have you done? You gave them 2, you take away 1. You devalue the one next to it. Would you do it? I wouldn't as a developer. Thank you.
Anybody else? Please step up.
Hi, I'm Wally Carson, 7996 Bass Lake Road. Just listening to the discussion tonight, the one question I have, being a frequent traveler of Bass Lake Road, there is this right-of-way. So does the owner of that property on the north end there, where you first get onto Bass Lake Road from Upper Roy Lake Road, does the owner of that property have the ability to take away the right-of-way for that road to be there? Is that a little bit of the issue here? Or, because I know I attended the first meeting when they presented a sketch plan for the development there. And I think it was my understanding that the owner or the developer of that was wanting to close Bass Lake Road so that they could have, I presume, so they could have access to Bass Lake with their whatever development plans they had there. So I guess I'm just trying to understand the situation as to the right-of-way there for Bass Lake. Does that owner have the ability to shut that road anyway if they go to develop it?
I don't believe so. The road is there by prescriptive right.
Okay.
And so until the city provides them a different alternative for roadway access for the people who live there, the road would continue to exist as far as I know.
Okay, so the current owner and developer of that wouldn't have a unilateral ability to say we're going to close the road?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of understand that further. Because initially it was my understanding that the owner developer of that north end was the one that started this process of looking at closing Bass Lake Road and rerouting it through
Absolutely not. I've had no conversation with
Okay,
him.
okay. Just wanted to understand it better, so thank you.
Anybody else?
Charlotte Philhauer at 25624 Roy Lane. Mine's more of a question of what this process looks like. I've lived here now 1 year, full-time on Roy Lane. I hate to think of all the construction traffic. I hate to think of 38 more residences. I hate to think of Bass Lake Road not being my puppy walk on a gravel road. I don't know what the issue is with gravel roads. I mean, I grew up on a farm. We dealt with gravel roads and no one said we had to abandon them because they were gravel. So pardon me. But my question is what is the process, assuming you gentlemen approve this request? How do we as residents get informed of the process? Because I feel as a new resident, I'm in the dark. And as you can see, all of us oppose, I would say a majority oppose any abandonment of this road. And so how do we get informed of the process and what's going on publicly as well as privately? Because I tell you what, last week I watched the YouTube video of the city council meeting that I attended. And when I had to hear our mayor in a sidebar conversation refer to Bass Lake Road would be a nice walking trail off the record, I question how much is being done publicly and what's being said privately. So I, as a resident, I want to be told when is the next meeting, what's going to be covered, what's been printed elsewhere. I don't know how to find out all that information, and I'm sure the people in this room would like to know that as well. Please.
Again, my name is Tom Cameron. I still live at 986 Bass Lake Road. Again, as I'm looking at the property, if we talked about the owner gifting that road to save his development, that also I would think that he, when you're talking about a lot of the stuff going around here tonight is dollars and cents, I would sure think that it would behoove him also to help pay for any improvements to Bass Lake Road if it would help his development.
I would agree.
So I'm not a negotiator, obviously, but.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm Rob Habercorn, 1002 Bass Lake Road. And really, I just have a question. So here we're looking at acquiring the right-of-way, and that opportunity won't be available if you wait. The house will be in the way.
That's
so now you can work with the developer and get that right-of-way figured out. Can you also get the right-of-way for Bass Lake Road as it exists at the same time from the same?
Possibly. I have to pursue that.
Because ultimately you'd want right-of-way for both roads, so you can either improve this one or redirect it. So if somebody changes hands, even on the northern piece of property.
My intention is when this is all done, whichever road we have, it will be on a right-of-way for the future.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Whichever way we decide to go, that road will be on a city right-of-way when it's complete. What's that? When we're done, if it was, say, decided to maintain the existing Bass Lake Road, this other right-of-way would likely go away. But the Bass Lake Road that you know today would be on a city right-of-way when this is done.
If I may try to add a little bit, my understanding is that just what we're doing today is a recommendation only. It doesn't bind anything.
Correct.
So as a recommendation to the planning and zoning, are we saying? Or this is to the city council?
We are making a recommendation, this recommendation to the planning commission.
Okay, to the planning commission. So then And what we're talking about tonight is getting the right of way, to recommend getting the right of way for the 66-foot area. What I'm hearing here is, why can't we get both at the same time? But what I think what you want to say is that if we, after the engineering studies are all done and we get a better idea of what's happening here, then we could give up that 66 and go with the Bass Road right away, right?
Potentially. Now, I'm thinking about it while we're talking. If some of that right away has to come from Mr. Savage, then yes, as part of his plat approval, we're probably going, if during this process, if it becomes obvious that that's where we're gonna go, I'm sure we're gonna try to pursue right away with him while we're negotiating the plat.
And then to answer the other question about the process here. In other words, we're just making the recommendation today. It will go to the Planning Commission. From there, if they are going to make a recommendation as well to the City Council, there would also be an open meeting for that as well.
Yes,
And then she could attend, anybody here can attend that as well.
absolutely, yeah.
And then when it goes to the City Council as well, it's also, of course, an open meeting.
Yes.
And so then anybody can attend that as
No
well.
decision could be made on this in any way, shape, or form
Without,
it occurring at a public meeting.
Right.
So they will be aware of what's happening when it's happening. Now, that's not to say that staff, council members don't have conversations outside these meetings, because we certainly have to in order to present anything at a meeting to anyone.
right,
So
Yeah,
while
but-
I appreciate the comment about the mayor,
yeah. And also the way it's about the two, if there's just two council people speaking, then it's not public. But if we have three together, we have to have a public
that's the way I understand
forum.
it.
Yes. So we can't be doing this behind the scenes so much.
No.
So it has to all be in front of everybody here. And we would really encourage that everybody please do participate. Now, as far as when they are scheduled, it's always publicly announced when it's scheduled. We have a regular scheduled meeting. That's on the board back there, right?
It's on the board. It's on our
Right.
city
So
website.
that will tell you the dates when that occurs. Mhm. And so nothing will be decided without that, and everybody will have the opportunity to be here.
Understand too, Mark, and anybody in the audience, this situation is is unique, for at least for Nisswa. It's not
Right.
something that we do a lot.
Right.
And I would say almost never. And
Mhm.
so there is a process and we are working through it. This committee looks at the details of engineering and the problems associated with the roads that we're looking at. And we will make a recommendation based on that information that I provide you here
Right.
to either the planning commission or the city council, depending on who does make the ultimate decision. So from here, this recommendation I'm asking you to make tonight, it goes to the planning commission as part of their preliminary plat approval.
Right.
That does not mean that it's under construction at that point. It just means that they've had a preliminary plat approval. Inside of that, we're expecting a right-of-way is reserved for a potential connecting road.
Mhm.
So that we can go through this exercise of determining if that makes sense, or we want to leave it where it is, or we want to improve it where it is.
And that will be through engineering company. We'll have a
And so
study done on that.
likely what will happen with this engineering study that I'm referring to, if you look at the last paragraph of my memo tonight, what I'm asking for there is Widseth will present us probably at our next meeting what this study will cost, what it includes, and then you'll take a look at those details and then make that recommendation to our city council,
Mhm.
who will then approve that engineering project. That engineering project then will take however long it takes. As part of their proposal that they will probably bring back next month, they will give us some idea of how long that takes. Once that's complete, they will notify me. We will bring that back to this meeting. We will review that engineering. It will be available to the public.
Mhm.
They will be able to say what they like, what they don't like. You'll be able to say what you like, what you don't like. And ultimately, you'll make a recommendation to the city council probably on that, because by that time, I believe the plat will have been either approved or denied or withdrawn, and we move on.
Thank you.
I have a question for Mark from Witseth. If we do nothing and continue on with Bass Lake Road the way it is there at some point in time going to be an issue where we have to do more than just grading it every year and putting down gravel every year or every other year? Are we going to hit a point where it starts to degrade faster and we're going to have to put more maintenance into it than what we currently do?
That's a Tom. Tom would like to answer that question. Okay. I guess what I would offer is, it could be maintained as a gravel road, probably the same as the comments are, there's probably 2 to 3 feet of class 5 now, because you just keep surcharging it, keep settling, you're just wasting the organics underneath. So that could continue. Partly what that would, if you look at a study, then, to go to, because ultimately it's the goal of the city to have all city streets paved. Because over the long haul, that is less maintenance, because at some point, you're going to own a $150,000 grader to grade 3/4 of a mile of road. So other cities have dealt with that, and that the program. So the long-term goal will be to eventually have a paved surface there, just for the more controlled maintenance of your other 20-some miles of road. And then for that to happen, that's probably what look at. Is it going to take stabilization fabric, surcharging, or what is going to be the cost to handle the street? And then once you pave it, now you create this, even though it is an impervious surface with a packed gravel, but now you have to follow, what are you going to do with the runoff? And so it develops more than just making it black. You have to follow now the current laws and everything for stormwater runoff.
Right.
And referring to runoff too, we currently treat the gravel road with chloride for dust control. So I know there's some concern about environmental with this lake. Well, we're adding chloride to control dust. So, and then also salt to maintain, to deal with the ice and snow. I guess that really probably wouldn't change a lot, but we do have to add chloride for dust control. So, yeah.
If we pave it, what type of life expectancy can we expect out of that area with it being over a bog swamp area?
Well, that would all depend on the success of the subgrade corrections. Right. I mean, I'll use the comparison, Tom's, Clark Lake Road, built through a swamp. And, the amount of money you put into that bituminous correction and everything is considerable. So that would be, partly what the study's gonna have to look at is subgrade conditions to see because before you would spend money to create it to a bituminous surface, you're gonna put subgrade corrections in place so that your bituminous surfacing goes its 30 to 40 years, and you're not spending $40,000, $50,000 every 5 years with Anderson Brothers.
That's my concern.
I will also add to that regarding Clark Lake Road. It also has been a maintenance headache, very expensive, and it's a paved road. And we have been looking at every time an opportunity presents itself to reroute, to abandon that, we are looking at it seriously every time, and we'll continue to do so. It does not last as long as any of our other roads that are up high and dry.
That's my concern, is that we spend $1 million on a road that the residents down the road don't want, and that we potentially end up spending another $50,000 a year, going 10 times over what we already spend on gravel for a road that in 20 years, we might end up having to spend another $1 million on. To me, that doesn't make much sense.
Until we started going through this process and I got input from the folks that are here tonight, I did have some that do want, and I do have some correspondence from them that they do want a paved road. And
but yeah, not the people in Nisswa.
Right, because you've heard from the resident here that represents all of Nisswa.
Yeah.
So there are at least some on that side who want a paved road, and they will continue to complain about the road as it exists today. They just will. So, yeah, it'll be an issue forever, and that's why I wanted to look at the what would it take to make that existing Bass Lake Road paved? Because then it answers their question of why we will probably never do that. Because I agree with you, and anybody else that says to spend $1 million to make that a paved road is a mistake. I kind of think that's exactly what that would be, is a mistake. Any other comment before we take a vote on the motion that's on the table? Hearing none, I would look for a vote then on the motion presented by Tom to accept, to make the recommendations that are in the memo that I presented earlier tonight.
And this would be for the 66-foot right of way.
This would be asking.
And the engineering study.
Asking the engineer, requiring the developer to provide a 66-foot right of way for a potential connection. It will also require them to reserve the existing Bass Lake Road corridor for a walking path should that connection be made.
Mm-hmm.
And it does also recommend that we get from Widseth a proposal to provide the engineering to look at all of these options. So with that, and Tom's motion is on the table, can I get a vote of all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll make the recommendation to the City Planning Commission to follow these recommendations. The next steps for us in this committee will be, like I had outlined before, once we have the engineering back from Widseth, we will look at that proposal and make the recommendation to the City Council to either go ahead with that engineering or not. Thank you.
Tom, could I ask Jonathan? So I'm just looking on your website. So the meeting next Tuesday for the Planning Commission, I'm looking at the agenda, so there are no public hearings scheduled. So I mean, you know, this, they got approved, but the developer is likely going to be putting their stuff together for the June meeting. Is that a correct statement? Because I expect I did. Well, I'm looking, so right now on the agenda that's on your website, is just, you know, public hearings, none. Well, there's public comment, yes, but I mean, but what I'm offering, this developer isn't going to be there next Tuesday of next week. No, so I just wanted this party to be aware of it and everything, that they'll probably be gearing up and coming in for the June meeting. I mean, which they have to have most of their stuff done by fishing opener then to get on the agenda. But there's still time for Tom or Joe's staff to just talk with them about what you've now heard tonight and looked at. So, no, thank you. I just wanted to. So, you know, we do have, you know, there's a couple week window now to prepare so that there's, you know, meaningful discussions between the developer and the Planning Commission in June.
Oh, Peter, I wasn't aware you had stepped out of the meeting for a moment. We just took a vote on the this memo. I have no way of showing it to you, I guess, regarding our recommendation to the Planning Commission that a 66-foot right-of-way be required of the developer, and that we pursue the engineering for the options for Bass Lake Road. And so far, I believe our vote, I'd be looking for, what is your vote for or against?
My vote would be in favor of the motion that was made that I seconded. And I'm sorry, we're having monsoons out here, so I got disconnected.
Understood. Problems of a modern world.
Okay.
How did the vote go?
The motion passed.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, starting at the top. We have a new tractor purchase that we're looking at. I'll give everybody a minute or so to clear the room. They were farmers, they don't want to get roped into doing any farming.
Very rarely all.
What's that?
The number of committee members.
It's an even number. I never thought about that.
Yeah. Is that right?
Last time that was on.
We never had a full, and since I've been here, we've never had a full group. There's always been some holes.
Folks, if you wouldn't mind stepping out, I'll make this map available to you after the meeting if you like.
I didn't realize that you weren't voting. Well, I'm glad.
I could either post it or you can come back to City Hall and look at it.
I can't hear them.
Sure,
I can't understand
absolutely.
what they're saying up there. No, I couldn't at all.
How you doing, Peter?
So far, so good. Other
You're
than
in
the monsoon.
Oh, really? So why aren't you back in Minnesota?
Working on it. We leave tomorrow.
Yeah. We need you back here.
I have no idea what town he's in. Peter, what town are you in?
Greater Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix. Okay, is everybody ready to move on? We'll talk about this new tractor purchase. Okay, so what this is currently we mow our ditches with a smaller John Deere tractor that's now 10 years old. It's part of our normal cycle. About every 10 years, these machines are replaced. It's kind of an optimum point in the cycle where we get our maximum value out of it. And anyway, we've made some other changes to our equipment fleet that you're probably aware of. We moved up the large tractor that we did have. We moved that into a payloader last year. Most of you have probably seen that. That previous tractor, we had snowblower capability. We can't cost effectively add that to our payloader. Snowblower for that machine is in the neighborhood of $125,000. Just for comparison, that would buy every piece of equipment I have outlined on here.
For the previous one, you mean?
For our payloader,
Payloader,
to have a working snowblower on that machine. And it's overkill for what we need. This tractor would be far more suited to that. Plus, we have other operations we need a tractor of this size for. The current tractor that we use is adequate for mowing ditches, but it's not big enough to operate the snow blower we'd like to maintain. And there's some other equipment that we have to utilize as part of our sewer operation too. We're going to have a wide area mower that we use. We have a disc that we pull with it. Those pieces of equipment require something bigger than the tractor that we have. So I'm proposing a machine here that does all those things. This is off, these prices are state bid. I guess I would ask, are there any questions about any of the details you've seen in here if you've gone through it?
Something that was budgeted for this year?
Yes.
Okay, so we have the quote for what we want to buy.
Yes.
And this is the estimate for what we're going to sell?
They're combined in here, yes. I also have probably a better list that unfortunately I wasn't able to get into the packet. So I'll go through what we're buying.
Yeah, what it's on and what it adds up to. But so we're actually selling all this breakdown here.
I think this summary might help. I'm just going to pass these copies down and I'll give you a couple minutes to take a look at it. Yes,
This is the options of the new tractor.
mostly. There's also trade-in values for some of our existing equipment on there too. And I believe there's a net cost.
Okay,
Well, what's the bottom line as far as what it's gonna cost the city?
Okay, so what will end up costing the city is on this. And so the total purchase price of everything is $166,587. Of that, the cost is split between the street department and the sewer department. The street department will be paying for $97,000 and the sewer department would be paying for $69,587.
So you're
Tom-
buying a snow blower too, you say?
Yeah, there'll be a front-mounted snow blower on this tractor in the wintertime. There'll be a ditch mower mounted on the side in the summer, most of the summer. But we have the option to take that off, and we have a disc that we pull to keep the spray irrigation smooth, should it become full of gopher mounds and such. We also have a batwing mower that we can pull on there, because there are areas that we can't have our farmer that bales it for us mow. So that's a 15-foot wide mower, and that's in this 166.
So what is this 103? Is that the cost of the tractor itself?
Yes, that's the cost of the tractor minus the trade-in value of our current tractor, which is that 4720. It's in there.
Okay.
I see.
And then there's also a value for our existing ditch mower, the Verdi, I think it's called. It has a trade-in value of, I believe, $3,300, $3,400, something like that. The new ditch mower is quite a bit more substantial, and the value of that is $33,000 purchase price.
So above the cost of the tractor, we're talking around 60 grand, is that right for the other stuff?
I'll just quickly walk through this list. I'll read it so that you can hear it.
Okay.
So the tractor itself is a 6120 John Deere. The cost of that is, from the state bid, is $128,968. We're adding to that tractor the ditch mower that I was referring to from Diamond Mower. That's $33,020. We're also adding a snow blower that's $25,622.88. And we would be adding a batwing mower for $15,085. The equipment we're going to be getting rid of or trading in is the 4720 tractor, which has a trade-in value of $21,740. There's a snow wing that we still own from the previous big tractor that has an approximate resale value of $4,000. Likely more. These are the numbers I'm shooting are conservative on anything we're selling. The other thing we're selling is the existing, we have an existing boom mower that we don't use anymore that has a residual value of approximately $7,000 to $10,000. And the Verdi mower that's in the quote there, it has a trade-in value of $33,6877. So that totals up to $166,587. Inside the maintenance budget, we've allowed for $97,000 to make this purchase. Subtracting that from the $166,587, we would have a residual of $69,587 that would come from the sewer operating budget.
And Tom, these, you had mentioned before, normally you would go out and bid these, but now you use the state bid, where the state goes out and takes bids on this equipment, and they get the benefit of buying a quantity.
We, the way it works, we either use state bid or Sourcewell. Sourcewell also does this process too. Usually they're very close. In this case, I believe everything that I'm quoting you is off the state contract. Just for, so you understand how that works, our last tractor we had for close to 20 years and sold it for, I believe, within $10,000 of what we purchased for it. And it was an $80,000 tractor. So we used it for 20 years for about $1,000 a year. It was dirt cheap. And same thing happens here because same thing is happening with our payloader that we just bought. We buy it at such a low cost. John Deere won't allow us to resell that equipment for at least 3 years because it undercuts what they sell to any kind of a contractor until at least year 3 or 4, that it would break even for what they're selling it to us for. So it's a good deal for us. It's a good deal for them. Usually cities don't put a lot of hours on these machines, and our use is lighter than what a contractor would do. So it has a good residual value. We get a pretty good trade-in when we are done using it. Plus we have the luxury of using really nice equipment to maintain our community and present a positive image of our community that we professionally keep it up.
So does that low price include the accessories and so forth, or just the tractor?
That is everything. That 166 is the tractor, 2 mowers, and a snow blower.
Do you think that this equipment would make our employees more productive, where they could get more done with the same amount of equipment?
I believe it does. You know, the ditch mowing we do now, our tractor's a little on the light side, and it works, but it breaks once in a while. It's not the ideal tractor for what it's being asked to do. It still has a very good value to it right now. So that's one of the reasons we trade when we do. We try to hit the peak of what it's costing us per year to do that service. Without the big tractor that we used to have, we used to be able to go back and forth depending on what equipment we were going to operate. Well, now we will only have 1 tractor where we had 2. So this tractor we're buying physically is somewhere in between the size of the tractor we have on staff now and the one we just traded.
I'm just thinking that this might allow us to, in the future, we might not have to add an extra person if that equipment can cover more.
It slows it down. It definitely, it's the most efficient way we have to do the services that we're asked to do.
I think it's a good idea.
Question?
I'll put in a plug for the extra 25 acres now that you have to maintain at your wastewater irrigation field. Starting this fall, they went from 45 and another 25 acres. So,
right.
So starting in 2021, there's a number of man hours that will be spent on that.
I'm slowly turning Mike Wagner into a farmer, whether he likes it or not.
Question?
Yes, Peter.
Somewhere in there, I saw the quote for the delivery. I mean, it was like almost $2,000. Is that pretty standard? I mean, where does this thing come from?
I don't know exactly where this tractor's coming from, but even our last one came from Germany. Most tractors with John Deere now, unless they are the very large front wheel drive tractors, they are all made overseas. Very few of their tractors are made in the United States anymore. And that's unfortunately the case with most of the brands that you see available.
Because you've got listed 1,280 miles. That sounded like a surface trip to me.
Say that again?
The quote included 1,280 miles at $1.50 a mile. So that sounds like a surface trip for some equipment.
Yeah, I'm not sure what shore it's coming in on, if it's San Francisco or New York, I don't know.
Okay, it seemed like it was on the trade-in equipment, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't have it on the screen. It's for the new one.
I believe it would be for the new one. Because we can deliver our used stuff to them, so if there were a charge for that, not a problem.
Okay. You need a motion?
Yeah, if you'd care to make one, I'd appreciate it.
I move that we recommend the purchase of the new tractor including the options, accessories that you've mentioned, and to include the trade-ins that you have identified. At a cost of approximately $97,000.
Okay, I have a motion by Peter. Is there a second?
I will second.
I'll let you pick which one said second first, John. It's Cam. Okay, Cam seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 3, we have a proposal to provide engineering services for a new recycling site. Joe Dubel will present that for us.
Yeah, last meeting we were asked to provide a proposal for consideration of the recycling and police impound lot. See if there go, and then try to go in.
Oh, Joe, you want to turn on your mic so Peter can hear you?
Dang it. Oh. Well, I'm so loud.
Peter can't hear.
You want me to start over, Peter?
Sure.
Last meeting, we requested this, provide a proposal for the recycling center and the police impound lot. That would go in the property next to the DOT property off of Lower Lake Road. And it's a conceptual plan, and we propose to put that together along with the cost estimate for the impound lot and the amenities that go with that for $4,500. Is there any questions on that?
Question, is this going to be, Tom, is this going to be operated and expensed by the city or in cooperation with the county? I've lost touch here.
At this point, that's not clear. What we're asking Widseth to do is actually design a site. Once we have a design and a cost for that site, we're going to approach the county with that cost and that design and find out how much we can get them to participate. It sounds like, according to our hauler, that there's a good chance that we're going to get substantial participation in the cost of at least operating it. I think there's a good chance we could get some contribution by the county to build it as well. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one, Tom. The city has had experience with this type of thing for quite a few years. And so they know, you know what it takes. And you had a sketch here, I think, at the last meeting where you showed what you wanted. And I guess in my mind, I question whether we really need engineering plan for this at this stage. You know, a concept plan is fine, but then you're going to have another plan for constructing it. And to me, there just isn't that much there.
Yeah, I guess, you know, I didn't provide any kind of a cost estimate. I didn't provide any electrical design or anything like that. I just simply provided a layout for how the dumpsters would set there,
right?
How the how potential shooting range for the police could sit there, and then also an impound lot. So what I'm asking the engineer to do is to take that crude drawing that I had given them and figure out what the thicknesses of the concrete should be, where the electric should be, where it's going to come from, give us some cost estimates we can share with the county or whoever so we can negotiate where that goes. As far as building from it, I don't know, Joe, what do you, I mean, we would be able to build off of what we're asking you to provide here, or am I ahead of myself when I say that?
Yeah, we would be providing a conceptual plan.
Okay.
So we'd put together the where, the materials, the parts, you know, and that, and then get a pretty close cost estimate on it. As far as designing construction, number one, the site is in a hole.
So we, you know, that at that point, there would be surveying you'd need to do to go into a full design, correct? Entrance into the facility. So there's some things that when you move forward with the construction documents and design.
It just seems to me that instead of a concept plan, you could have just asked for a construction plan, because you're basically asking for that. You know, I mean, if you have to do site work, to me, it's just kind of a duplication. It's not that, it's not that complicated a situation, that's all.
You know, I have no problem there's no timeline on this for us right at this moment. What I'm trying to do is get us positioned for the upcoming budget cycle. So any part of this that has to come out of us, I have some idea what to put into a budget. Chances are we're going to continue to operate off of our existing site for at least one more year. But there are reasons for us to get shifted out there too. So I could ask Joe to come back with a new proposal that does what you're asking for, Dill, too. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just isn't that complicated a situation where you need both a concept plan and then plans and specs. You know,
sure.
Kind of duplication.
Is the county going to require that we have a conceptual plan done in order for them to get on board?
They haven't said.
I mean, we might have a little more bargaining chip if we have with Seth do up a conceptual plan, so we have a little better idea what we're going to be looking at for cost than if we come in with our own hand-drawn designs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, now I would say this about my drawing is it's a good sketch.
No, it wasn't anything against your drawings.
But it's not the scale isn't
I wouldn't even
perfect.
go that far.
I was hoping for something a little more professional to be able to share with the county and others too. I'm not sure how to do both. I mean, you could ask as a proposal that the conceptual drawing is part of.
Well, you're going to definitely do it, right?
I think the recycling site is a goal.
Yeah.
We're
So if you're
almost
going to do it, why not just ask for plans and specs?
Well, Tom, there were a couple concepts that you presented, right? I mean, it wasn't just one. Wasn't there a couple different ideas of where you place the recycling and?
Yeah, I mean, there was.
So who's so the staff is gonna determine this is the best concept, pass it on to the engineer and say, develop this.
And that's kind of what I've already done.
Okay.
I gave Joe the concept I liked the best.
So we saw your concept at the last meeting, and
Yes.
that's the one that's gonna be passed on.
Yes, it'll be improved, properly scaled.
Yeah.
And a cost estimate generated from which we could either go to that length and go to the county, or we could go a little further like Dill is suggesting and do the same thing.
So Joe, what
And
would
be
be
ready
the
to go.
difference in cost between like developing your $4,500 and developing plans and specs for a concept that, you know, we all apparently like? To bypass the conceptual, like Si's saying, to bypass the conceptual design phase and just move right into plans and specs?
Oh, we could surely do that, but some of the things that happens during a conceptual plan is you're looking at some of the layout issues that he may have had for the plan that may not work exactly or need to be adjusted. So those kind of things get worked out on that. If you're going to go into the kind of the reason for the conceptual drawing is so that you can give a reasonable estimate as to the design process. You know, the one main thing with that is the site. And, you know, right away, we'd have to send survey in there to do it properly in the design. What I'll work off of the conceptual to get, you know, the fill and some of the things that require for the site, I'll do that off of LiDAR. And it won't be, you know, it's good, but it won't be perfect. When you get into the preliminary and the final design, then you start working out those problems and you refine your estimate too.
See, to me, that's all okay, but I don't think it's necessary for a project this size.
And that's entirely up to you guys. I'm just
you will have a better cost estimate if you do the plans, then you'll know. And you'll know what figure to give the county. I mean, just to me, it's overkill. That's all.
So I think what I'm hearing, Bill, is you don't want to duplicate efforts with surveying mostly.
Yeah.
So if the concept drawing were part of the overall engineering that we're asking done, if I could have Joe maybe come back with a revised estimate, that the first step in that is to have a concept drawing, and then we approve that possibly in a meeting to come. And then he moves forward into the next step inside that engineering proposal that we finishes it, I guess.
I'm not sure what you're saying, but to me, that $4,500 is really probably not necessary. Most of it.
Is there an issue with public comment or something? If kind of what that woman brought up earlier today, of her not feeling like she was involved. If we go directly to a construction phase and bypass the conceptual drawing, and we decide we don't particularly like something that Joe comes up with in the construction that could have been nipped in the concept phase, we're kind of stuck with it, or we're paying a lot of extra money to go back to the drawing board.
That's a good point. I think I see it that way too. I don't know where to recommend, where to go with this. I do think, kind of to Dill's point, that this recycling site is going to happen. It's going to happen out there. It's just a matter of how many bins, paved, not paved, things like that, which are, that's all shown in a concept. I don't think there's going to be a lot of, unlike what you saw tonight with this, I don't think we're going to have a group of people here saying absolutely not. It's way the other way. Every time this has come up, the room's been full of, don't get rid of our recycling.
Okay.
So I don't know that in this case we'd be hurt at all to have plans that are ready for construction. We wouldn't be approving a project in any way. Okay. I think we could still have a public meeting to show what's going to be built, ask for any comment. We could get a revisement from those construction drawings if needed.
Okay.
A lot of the design requirements are being given to us by our hauler.
Sure.
Dimensions of his bins, how much room he needs for turning movements with his truck. All of that's kind of already been built into what we've handed to Joe. So
I appreciate what the gentleman's saying about the cost of doing this step, but I think that it's a necessary step.
Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion to accept the proposal for engineering services and recommend that goes to the city council for approval.
I'll second.
I have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Without any discussion, I would be looking for all in favor of approving the proposal to come up with a concept for our municipal recycling. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Recommendation carries. We'll be going to the city council with the estimate from Widseth for $4,500 to come up with a concept for the new recycling center in our gravel pit. Deal.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda. Oh, do you have a comment, Peter?
I was just going to say, Gil, we still love you.
I think I'll go home.
Good thing I didn't hear that one.
Okay, our next item, number 4, is the Hazelwood Drive Extension engineering proposal. Again, this is going to be presented by Joe.
This is we've been trying to figure out what maybe to call this road, but
I'm gonna.
Stackhauer Street.
Stackhauer Street. Right now I'm gonna refer to it as the extension of Hazelwood Drive. It was requested at last meeting that we take a look at possibly connecting the option that we approved for Hazelwood Drive was to go through up to Commons Avenue and not to use the other route. We had two options for that. I was going to put together a full cost for that road. When this came up last meeting, I decided that we would present this proposal and I would put them together as a single project or a break it up project for the cost, because that could add some savings to it if you did both. This road was suggested to be an access to both the public works, follow through for the public works and for the DOT. We're hoping that possibly with some of the backage road costs proposals and sharing with DOT that since they do use the facility up there, that possibly this could walk into that too. So I put together a proposal to add to that road the same way with use LiDAR and set up the road design and get a cost estimate. And we added this for $2,500.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on what we're looking to do here?
So this is that road that would go straight up into Commons Road, you said?
Well, okay.
Off of Hazelwood, had the original one where it would sort of slide in through places and then.
This would go on up to Lower Roy Lake Road, I believe.
If you got a minute, I can see if I can find the drawing.
Yeah, let's get that. But yeah, we voted the last time to have it go, what you had proposed.
Yeah, we had two options last time. One was to basically swing over, out of Hazelwood Drive.
Right.
And go down and around and connect to 77 that route.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other option was to go straight through Commons.
Right.
I'll just draw a line, Commons Drive, it comes out
Right,
there.
like that, yeah.
So and then was your suggestion to extend the road up to lower.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And,
that's what this is.
That's what this is to tack onto that. I would have, we did the two options for the conceptual last time.
Yeah.
And then I was going to come back with a cost estimate on this, just
Right.
for.
Has there been any feedback from MnDOT as far as how they might participate in that?
When we get into design on that, that will be the time that we'll start doing that. Plus, if you do decide to go into design on either one of those, well, that one option if you do, which hasn't been decided yet, the first process there would be to get the right of way.
Yeah, I'm just curious whether MnDOT.
We don't know if I'm not.
How much of it, I guess, I'm curious.
I'm sure that it could be up to 100% of the construction. They probably would not pick up the engineering costs on something like that.
Do you think all the way to Lower Roy Lake Road?
Two things happen on that I look at. One is either they're going to participate because what Tom had mentioned that, they do have property up there they use. And the other option, if that is not the choice and they choose to only pay for the backage part of it, if we get that to happen, then even combining the job, if you're going to do it anyhow, is going to save money that way.
Yeah.
So either way, it makes sense that if you're going to do Hazelwood Drive and you're going to go that route, to do the connection and go ahead up to it. It made good sense.
Yeah.
Good idea.
This is what we're paying for.
Do they have a limit? Sometime, I thought that they had a limit, like $500,000 or something like that they would contribute.
I'm not sure, but I figure it's something they want on their plan. What year was that, Mark? 2001?
Which is the 2001, access management plan.
Yeah.
Baxter
That is
and
part of that, so-
The
last meeting that we had was, why don't we just, rather than go like this, which you said like, why don't we go up
Tom tomorrow morning at our wastewater plant project. I'm kind of on the same page as you. We're gonna start looking at this recycle. I'm gonna go out and survey this my wastewater plant budget. Why dig around the main concept? Give me contours, not meters. So just, I'm on the same page. So I'll talk to Tom tomorrow about that. It can easily get the surveyors out there for a day and there might be.
I don't know, it just seems to me like,
Well, wait, no, because, well, one, USA work is showing up next Monday, and we're gonna be doing all the virtual data stuff here, and stuff. So we're gonna change the landscape a little bit.
This makes sense to me.
So, as I said, I'm just gonna, thanks for the comment. So,
If you're gonna do it eventually.
let me do some survey.
yeah, you know, I just, it's no big deal.
That's something that could be used at,
There's a little more longer shooting range than just put all the property. Yeah, so.
No, and
that's why
now,
I want a little more contours to see
How
how
they come, I haven't been to the plant for a couple weeks, so they,
Yeah, so we have a meeting tomorrow, right now, next Monday, USA work is.
that's right, next Monday, I gotta remember.
They'll be showing back up.
What time is that, 11?
Well, no, our meeting tomorrow is at 10 a.m.
Okay. At the plant?
Yeah, we meet so last Thursday, so
Oh,
tomorrow
okay.
morning at 10 a.m. at the plant.
I was gonna ask you something, God, I don't remember what it was. Something else, there was something else. Oh, I know it. Did they, on that direct board, did that, I was out of town, on that direct board down there at Grandview, did that go good?
No, that's why I was late, they're dealing with it.
Wasn't that supposed to be a 2-day deal or something?
Yeah, well, now, we go out there, Tony went out there because he's got problems, and we just, so the manhole coming up from the lake that was put in 91, the other two, so there was supposed to be a straight line between the two.
Right.
So we got installed, they had a sag to it, and they came up, contractor digs down, with a new manhole, and he just sees the boot on the manhole, fits it to the existing pipe. No, put it into the plant. He put it, he put the manhole in 6 inches. So then he goes to try to hook up his direct.
Say, Peter, are you up on this extent?
because I listed.
That we're looking at on Hazelwood?
No, I missed last month's meeting. So I
Yeah,
know
so
about an extension.
Bill came up with the idea that rather than angle through the, that current Joe Hall's place, I think it is, rather than having the road go through, cut through his property there, we just go straight up to Commons, which would be straight west. No, yeah, west.
It would go straight from,
Hazelwood Drive.
Hazelwood or 77 to lower Lake Road, Lower Roy Lake Road, excuse me, all the way through past the into the area of the maintenance and the DOT.
So the road itself would go from where that Wausau Homes area is, on 77, go all the way to Lower Lake Road. And
So
then
what-
we would go all the way through there and all the trucks could go through there. And then from Hazelwood Drive, that would curve right into that road. And it would connect as a T into that Commons Road where the trucks would go.
It's
I
a
don't
good
think
thing
we'd end up causing
good thing we built Hazelwood to handle, what was it, Tom, 9-ton trucks?
He's not here right now.
I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Hazelwood Drive reconstruction was for 9-ton axle load.
Yeah. Well, how did we resolve connecting at 77? We gonna eminent domain that revised Wausau Homes building?
That'll depend, that's Highway Commission.
Okay.
That'll depend on MidDOT, whether that opens or closes. They
So
might leave it.
So we don't have an access onto 77? Or we?
No, we don't.
You wouldn't, yeah.
No, right now at the conceptual level, that if approved, would go into the, I'm sure the city would have to start working with getting the property, the right of way.
I think, Peter, what you're remembering is a few years ago, that Wausau home came up for sale. The city passed on the option to buy it at that time.
Right. And now we need it.
Now
Yep.
we need it.
I mean, everything you're talking about, from what I can gather, you have no entrance or exit to 77.
Currently, no. What we have is the county showed some concepts for potential roundabout in the area, that Wausau home. And so that's why we're bringing it up there. Even if it's not a roundabout, if it's just an lighted intersection, it would probably be at that point. One of the other reasons why it would pass through that Wausau home is it's in line with the road that heads off into the airport property on the other side.
So I'm a little confused. You are planning an entrance and exit to 77, or you're not?
Yes, this would be an entrance and exit onto 77 if it's constructed.
Good,
Yes.
okay.
If you look at the back.
What happens, Tom, if we can't
drive
get that
into
property?
storage, it's not finished.
I mean, otherwise we're building a big U.
No, we
You know,
would
it's
probably
kind
go
of
through an
a
eminent
model
domain process.
I don't know, there's a
So we're pretty intent on.
basement or not.
That's always a last resort, but
Right.
it can be done.
Okay.
So do
I
we
just don't
need,
want to spend the money on having a survey done and all this if there's a potential that we're not going to have an exit onto 77.
I think that's such a big intersection there, not just for the city, but for the county.
Okay.
I think that we would find a way to get that done.
Okay.
so we need to go ahead and vote on this?
I think you should. What you're voting on, remember, is the extension onto that,
Yes.
which would take it from Commons Drive over to Lower Roy Lake Road.
I'll make that proposal.
I have first by Galen and a second by Tom. Any further discussion? Without hearing any, I would look for a vote in favor.
Aye.
Opposed? Peter?
No, I voted aye.
You did, okay, all right, all in favor, the recommendation will pass then to the city council.
I'll present that with both together too when we do it.
Okay, I'll try to find our maps too that you gave us. I looked, I couldn't find them. I'm
Well,
sure
You'll
I'm
have a
sure we
new
got
one.
stashed.
You'll have a new one then for that, so.
Perfect, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Oh, let's see, what do we got left? Been kind of a long night already.
Wolf chase.
Schaefer's.
Schaefer's Grocery Corner development. This will come from me. Unfortunately, well, I do, we have a map on the list of files there so Peter can see it maybe if you got it there, John. Yeah. I think they will have to access it by behind, yeah. The state will never allow it.
You mean,
They want no new access.
where the new paving already is or beyond that?
Yeah,
Well,
we haven't gotten
they're
any
gonna
drawings
have
at all from him
a
yet,
regular
so
ditch
I
like you
can't say
have
what
on
his plans are.
you know,
I have no idea.
Yeah, they'll have a ditch on both sides up to the road that goes down
Oh, yeah.
the
There we
west
go.
side of Clark Lake. Or not Clark Lake, you know.
Right.
So that's what that's
It's very
for.
quiet,
Then
I'll just
from
step
there
up
on, it's
and
gonna
try
be
to talk about that a little bit maybe, or
reason being
maybe I
is
don't
we're
need
gonna
to.
save all those trees along there, you know.
In the upper
But-
left-hand corner is the existing Schaefer's
It's
grocery
really deep.
store.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And so Andy Schaefer and Joe Hall came forward with this concept drawing for a development where the existing Schaefer's grocery store is. And to give you a frame of reference, in the upper left-hand corner is the existing Schaefer's grocery store, and south is south on this map. Yep, that where John's moving the X, that is the existing grocery store. So what they're proposing and what they're immediately going to look at is in the lower middle, there's a development, if you go down a little bit. Housing development right there, all in little, I think, to me, they're blue squares. I'm colorblind, bear with me. So this is the first phase that they want to build with this. And if you notice on this map, it shows a series of roads, and on the black line on the far right, there is a backage road that would need to be constructed. And if we can follow that down a little further, and then you see it makes a left-hand turn back towards 371. At the end of that, current concept maps that we have from previous projects show a lift station that serves this area and areas across the highway where the airport property is now, and potentially areas to the south of that. So where this impacts this committee, obviously most of this stuff is looked at in the planning commission, but where it impacts this committee is that far right black line, and the black line that was shown on the bottom would become city streets. And so we're going to be looking for feasibility studies for those. Those are also roads that we expect MnDOT's going to participate in building, because we believe that there are going to be some accesses on the 371 that we're going to be able to close. So this backage road is going to function very much like what we were just looking at over by Wendy's. So that's some stuff that we have to consider. This is the sketch drawing, I guess you would say. They're looking to add I think it's three apartments buildings under this. A nursing home and 2 apartment buildings. The existing grocery store would be a clinic and possibly some other retail, and they're planning on building a new grocery store somewhere in the neighborhood of between where you see that clinic and nursing home. So that they have a lot going on here. We don't have any details yet, but what this is going to mean for the city is that we're going to need infrastructure in roads, sewer to serve all of this. And then we also believe that there might be a need for a city water system. And yesterday we had a meeting with Seth to begin looking at how do we step into this, because it's a fairly substantial development for the city. Also at the meeting that we had with Schaefer's when they presented this, Mark Ronai was in attendance, and he also has plans off this map that we don't have any drawings for yet, but that could be significantly larger than what we see here. So it will greatly impact what sewer capacity we have. We will have to decide how to run sewer lines to best serve it. If we're going to provide city water, and if we are, how that would be provided. And I'm not really asking you to make any kind of a recommendation tonight. I don't think we're ready for that, but I just wanted to make you aware of some things that are coming in the near future.
Who's proposing this, Tom?
The Schaefer family in conjunction with Copper Creek, Joe Hall.
Oh, really? I see that it completely ignores that access that's proposed there right behind Schaefer's, you know, where they were going to put the roundabout, the county.
Yeah, and actually Jenny had set up a meeting with us, the county and the state, and we talked about that a little bit. The county doesn't consider that concept that you're familiar with the roundabouts. They've already blown that out. They don't think that's going to be built.
Okay.
So the possibility that if there's a roundabout that it could move further east on 13 is a possibility, and it could be somewhere in the area that Copper Creek is showing on this map. Obviously, we wouldn't have 2 roads intersecting County 13. As they show, it would end up having to be 1. We would have input from the county on where that would occur.
It still shows that access road into where Schaefer's is now.
That will
So
be closed.
would Schaefer's disappear?
Where the grocery store is today, that frontage road that you're familiar with would be closed.
Well, they show it open.
It would be closed.
Okay, okay, because otherwise that screws up that whole
Yeah,
intersection.
it may remain open for the first phase of this when they're building those retirement homes. But by the time this is complete, that'll be closed.
Yeah, okay.
And they show the road go all the way down to near that Hole in the Day Drive. That intersection there would be closed as well, I'd assume?
I'm not sure what all
the way
all the
down.
accesses that we would end up closing. We're probably going to be getting some feedback from MinDOT on
Right
that.
there, yeah, that, where it says Hole in the Day. See how it goes right into there?
That's not all the way to Holland.
It goes right into their driveway.
I'm sorry?
That isn't, Holland Day's way down here. This right now, that would stay open.
Yeah, Hole in the Day Drive here. Yeah,
It's way down here.
So,
This-
yeah,
You're talking about this one?
I was talking about this one.
Oh,
I would expect that one to stay open with the church
Where
there.
is,
That's
where
where
is
the church is? Okay.
Where's the brew house on this?
If we go up, okay, where Smiley Road ends now, you're probably familiar with that. The black line that runs level across there,
Yeah,
that's the current end of Smiley Road. It's just extended to the east. And then all them little blue dots that you see that are with numbers in them, that's the first phase they want to build, and it's retirement homes.
And is that right behind the brew house place?
More south of that.
Put in there. Yeah.
You're familiar with DH Docks?
Yeah,
It's behind that.
So they're closed.
okay,
So
pretty
if they
far
put
off 371, okay.
Right now you get on here, you know, and, but then.
Is that a Mark Runai project? Is that where he comes into play?
He will
That's
be
where we have a problem.
probably bringing us projects that come off of the backage road that you see in that far right black line.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be bringing us some projects to the right of that.
Or down here.
okay. Is that Grandview land now? ETOC land?
Yeah, that black line straddles the property
They won't let it cross. the road.
owned by Schaefer's and ETOC.
I don't think
Okay.
there's one there now either.
And what about the little fish, the guy that rents boats and sells fish and bait?
Before this was presented to us, he is looking to move to the other side of 371.
Okay, okay.
Go like this to get out.
Isn't there a little sign shop in there somewhere too?
Sedavi, I'm not sure where he is on that. He'd be on 13, John, if you can page it down again, I'm sorry. Other way. Yep.
Well, yeah, this is,
Yeah,
that's what they're doing now, they're redoing this road.
Yeah.
Hard to make out, but I think he's like the third one in before you hit the curve on 13.
You live down here, don't you?
Okay,
That, if you count it over 3 squares, I think, maybe 4.
yeah,
He's one of those properties, I can't remember which. So obviously that'll be up to Schaefer's
Roads from that.
to deal with, or maybe he stays. I'm not sure what their plan is for him.
I'm on the north.
okay.
So Tom, if
This land here.
if this all
belongs
goes
to
forward
Grandview
and
now.
those apartments are put in, the nursing home, the retirement homes
Yep.
and all that,
That's
if all
their-
that's hooked up to
No, I
city
don't know
sewer
where
and
the
water,
road
do we
is
have the
there.
capacity
Where's the road?
to be able to handle
Goes-
all that? Or are we gonna have to increase our infrastructure?
Right now, if this is built, I believe we could handle this, but it will take up a significant chunk of the capacity we're currently building. We don't have anything concrete. However, the estimates that he was throwing at me were 1,000 ERCs. Well, we couldn't accommodate that without some sort of a second expansion. So
That's why I'm wondering, if this is gonna use up a significant portion of our capacity, can we ask that Schaefer's essentially pays for expanding our capacity so that they're not using up more of?
one thing to know, every time they make a connection, we charge a connection fee. And a good portion of that is put into an account that helps fund the next expansion.
Okay.
Well, Tom, you mentioned city water.
Yeah, one of the reasons that was brought up is they're going to be asking to modify the height restriction for apartment buildings.
Yep.
The number of floors that they were asking for with the one, can you page it down a little bit, John? The one in the corner there, the one that's kind of yeah, like that right there that John's on. They wanted to go up as high as four stories on that. In order to provide fire protection and other things for that, I think we should be talking about city water. And so I think one of the early things we may be asking Woodseth to advise us on is, should we be considering a water system? And if we did, what kind of cost estimates are we going to be looking at? If this structure were approved, I think you could expect to see several more like it proposed by other developers in this area. And so the beginning of a water system that we're contemplating is a water tower and treatment plant, possibly, could be anywhere, but we think it might be in the area of the water slide now, with water mains that head west to serve Grandview, and a water main that would come east to serve this development, possibly anything that Grandview is looking at, and it might extend north along the new backage road that we're proposing for Hazelwood, for some other developments that are rumored to be coming there.
What is our current height restriction?
25 story.
And how much higher would this be going?
Well,
we don't know.
They have not submitted anything.
Right.
So.
But I mean, what would?
Right now, 32 to 35. You know, that's for the height, but I mean, you know, you can be from 32 feet to the peak of your roof, but it's from the highest ground level around your structure to the midpoint of your cable line, we'll just call it. But if you have a flat building commercial roof, your top of your turret would be 25 feet. Essentially allows you a two-story building.
So this would be twice that.
Yeah.
Right next to that way.
So luckily, that's not something that we have to decide how many floors. That's going to be handled in the planning commission. Don't want to deal with that. Planning commission and the city council will make that call. When they do, if they do, then that would enter into our discussion of the water system. So
How much of these roads are we going to be maintaining? Are we going to be maintaining all those interconnected roads?
no, we're looking at mostly just the backage road. We already maintain the frontage road. Parts of that will remain. Anything that's interconnecting, I believe, is going to be private at this time, although that could change if they decide to build them to city spec and ask us to maintain it.
When you say Schaefer's, who do you mean? Teddy?
Andy,
Andy?
his boy. Teddy was here too, but Andy is.
Have they talked to people like Arnie Johnson and so forth? And Grandview, they all own property there.
Obviously, they've been talking to Grandview because Mark Ronai was here with them,
Okay.
but so was Joe Hall with Copper Creek. So the plan you see came from Copper Creek. And I think the main reason Mark Ronai was here is when we construct a lot of this infrastructure, it now makes his property ready.
Right,
for
they own
development.
all that to the east.
So I think this will be the first of other projects to come. So there's nothing for us really to decide here or recommend. I just wanted to show you what's coming up. So you're familiar with it, so you can start taking a look at it. If you've got questions or you'd like to see this map in greater detail, feel free to stop in, and I'll set it out for you. You can have a look at it. Or if you want to go talk to Schaefer's or Copper Creek about it, that's fine too. Or even if you have questions for Mark or Joe, probably a good idea to start looking into it, because we will be making some decisions about this probably this year. So
Is there any talk about whether or not those two camps are going to open this year?
Hubert and Lincoln, they are.
They are. Because, that's another potential development business, both those. But they are going to open.
Yeah, I gotta go start them up first week of May.
Good.
So,
Yeah. Bambi owns all that land.
So with that, just getting back to our agenda, wrapping up the meeting. Number 7, Mark, do you have any updates for our lift station 3 and the sewer plant?
Like I said, lift station 3 was actually started up mid last week on Tuesday. City folks, they've been operating it since for about a week now, and they were continuing on the directional drilling, getting the structures in, and they're working on that today. So by the end of this week, they'll have most of the infrastructure in it. The lift station's operating, full electric, has installed the generator. So that system is functional, and it will continue. Go on until June because we have to do this pavement. So Anderson Brothers or Neck River or whatever they're using has to open their plants. So that, but essentially, there's substantial completion was last Friday, and they have the structure, the lift station up and operating, fully functional last week. Then on the wastewater plant, tomorrow we have our monthly construction meeting at 10 a.m. at the plant. We expect U.S. Schaefer to be coming in next Monday. We'll continue working on stabilization cell 4, actually installing the bedding, and then probably PVC liner. People from Colorado will be here the following week, the week of May 10th. Start that, and then they'll continue to work it over the next month. They have the irrigation system expansion. But then we'll start our water balance, likely sometime in June, for the wastewater plant. And that'll continue all through the summer, within final completion this October. Any specific questions I can answer them?
I think one thing I'd like to ask you, Mark, I don't know that everybody here has met Joe. If you'd like to introduce him, or Joe, if you want to introduce yourself. Do you have anything else? Huh? Dubell.
And my dad always taught me it was Dubell, you spell it, it's dumbbell, no M and 1 M. Never forget.
Very good. Well, welcome, Joel. I look forward to working with you on things we have coming up. So, with that, our last item, committee members, any questions, comments, things we didn't talk about tonight? Issues you'd like to bring up for next month, maybe? Hearing nothing, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, one comment.
If we end up having a whole bunch of developments go up over the next year, do you think it would be beneficial to meet more than once a month?
It could be. If we end up having to meet more than once a month, I don't think a lot of the developments we're going to have are going to have the crew we had here tonight. That just is such a convoluted thing that I don't know that it would be as controversial, but if they were, I would try to schedule extra meetings in there. It might be at the request of a developer contractor to have those meetings too. So if there is, I'll try to give you as much heads up as I can. And, you know, one of the reasons we added so many members to this committee is that if one of you or a couple of you had to be gone for some reason, we would have enough here to make a good decision, a good recommendation to the council. So
We,
yeah, Peter.
yeah, we went all through planning and zoning with all of the $30 million expansion of Grandview. With, I think, at the peak of problems and challenges, we had 2 extra meetings. We had Grandview pay for them. So a normal schedule was 12 a year, and we had, I think, 14 meetings the year that we were peaking on the development of the Grandview expansion. So it does, Tom, tend to spread itself out reasonably well. But make sure Grandview pays for the extra meetings.
I'll let Mark know.
Yeah, he's well aware of it.
All right. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Looking for that motion to adjourn.
So move.
Peter makes the motion. Anybody for a second? Second. Galen makes a second. Cam had the last one. All in favor? Anybody opposed? We're out of here. Thank you, guys.
When do you get back, Peter?
We leave tomorrow, so we'll be back about a week from now if we can go down Highway 13 to get to our house, Mark.
Yeah, you're missing all the fun on Highway 13 right now.
I know, they shut our gas line off today. Now I'm worried about restarting the pilot from Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Well, we had our line electrical cut out for a while.
Yeah. It's going to happen, but it's for the good.